We are Rylis Productions. This is our 1973 Plymouth Cuda. This car's only reason to exist is to make me laugh and smile like a crazy lunatic every single time I drive it. It may not look like much due to the lack of paint and dirty exterior, but this car was never made to look pretty. Rather, its beauty is to be driven to and from a racetrack, driven hard, and get us back home safely in one piece. So come along and find out why the experience to this car is simply brutal. The first thing most people ask when they see the car is, what color is it going to be painted? The harsh reality is that paint doesn't make your car any faster or run more reliably. All those thousands of dollars spent on paint can be lost in an instant at a track day when you hit a wall or flip over. Another reason why there's a lack of paint is because I was ignorant and broke at the time when I was first building the car, but mainly because I didn't give a fuck and I thought the Cuda looked great as is. There are very few creature comforts to the car as it was stripped out and gutted to offset the heavy roll cage. The car is cramped and claustrophobic, deafeningly loud, and reeks of exhaust gas as the mufflers dump behind the solid axle. Fairly heavy steel chassis and archaic suspension means that this Cuda can be a handful to drive. Mopars are notoriously front-end heavy, which means it's extremely difficult to get a 50-50 weight distribution. Underneath our fiberglass AR hood resides our 426 Gen 3 Hemi engine. These motors pack a lot of power for their size and should help with the 50-50 split. This motor was custom built for us by the experts at Arrow Racing Engines. They also build plenty of engines for the Trans Am 2 series, so they know what they're doing. The Cuda is an actual BS23, and it had a 340 before, but it got damaged, so I replaced it. The Hemi has Apache heads that are fed through an Eagle intake and a fast throttle body. The air gets sucked in through an air filter by air raid. We use 4 Innovations fuel rails on a return style system that's plumbed through XRP racing hose. The stock ignition coils work great, and here you can see the Hydro Boost master cylinder. We run a Mopar alternator that's been converted to a 1-wire, and if you look closely at the engine block, you can see that it's made of aluminum. This weighs about 100 pounds less than cast iron and is perfect for our naturally aspirated power levels. The 1-wire alternator makes for a much simpler install, and we use an ATI super damper to balance things out. We turn to Be Cool to keep the heat down as they make the largest radiators for E-body Mopars. We use Honda Type 2 coolant due to the aluminum block and use Moroso radiator caps. We use Moroso catch cans as well as they make great USA made products. The Gen 3 Hemi is an easy swap because it's the same bell housing pattern as a small block. It also makes a ton of torque, is extremely reliable, and has served us well over the years. The Cuda is finished in dark gray automotive primer as it was cheap to get and protects from rust. It has a 1970 grille because I got an fender bender a few years back and I like it better than the 72-74 front ends. Rather than having money for paint, I spent my budget on safety equipment such as racing seats, a roll cage, fuel cell, fire extinguishers, and racing wheels instead. One can never install too many safety features on a track car, and to me, they're worth every penny. The safety equipment does have a trade-off as it makes getting in and out a pain in the ass. The roll cage was precisely welded together by Brandon Budak at Twin Cam. The roll cage is built with 1 3/4 mild steel tube 120 wall. Here is 0.95 compared to the thicker 120. We also run an AccuSump to minimize oil pressure loss on turns. We use a steel back mount to rigidly tie the driver's seat to the roll cage. And the reason why we use Racetech seats is they have that provision. The seat is also bolted straight to the floor to make things super solid. Once you get inside, the feeling is pretty cool. I always imagine I'm climbing into a rocket ship. We use an old Racepack IQ3 dash to display engine information. It really isn't this bright though, as the camera is recording too much light from the dash. This blue is a more accurate representation of what it really looks like in person. Speed Dog made the custom 6-speed shift knob with the Plymouth logo. We needed a robust and stable ECU to run the Gen 3 Hemi, and why we chose Mega Squirt from EFI Source. The driver's seat is a Racetech 9119 made of carbon Kevlar weave and weighs about 14 pounds. It's expensive as hell, but only the best for my nice ass. The passenger seat is a 4119 and weighs about 21 pounds. We use planted aluminum side mounts as they make really strong parts. In case of an emergency, we use Safecraft fire extinguishers. There's also one in the rear for the fuel cell, which is an Aerotech Laboratories 22-gallon with an aluminum container. Call me crazy, but I actually find it therapeutic to clean my wheels. I don't mind having the dirtiest Cuda on the planet as long as my wheels are clean. These are Forgeline GS1Rs, size 18 by 10.5 on all 4 corners. They're shod with BF Goodrich Rival S 315/3018 tires. Here's a nice shot of the Dr. Diff brakes in the rear. The wheels have a really nice satin black finish. These wheels are motorsports proven and come in custom offsets needed to fit the 315 square setup. The front brakes are Dr. Diff 13-inch and all the calipers have Carbotech pads. We use Forgeline competition monoblocks because they're the best in the business. This series of wheel is built to the demands of endurance racing. They have very high load ratings, exceptional stiffness, and fatigue strength. They also come with a knurled bead option that holds the tire in place, and why we use them in all our builds. I needed to turn the Cuda around to put it on the lift and then go jack casters and really make it easy. The header bolts get loosened over time, so I have to tighten them down. At around 3,415 pounds with a full tank of fuel, the Cuda is a heavy bitch. You see the Jackson Pollock design on the front spoiler, and all the spots you see on the front, yeah, those are bugs. Here's a nice view of what's installed underneath the car. We have a firm feel sector support kit and a fast ratio arm. The T56 Magnum 6-speed transmission. TTI ceramic coated exhaust headers, as well as a firm feel fully welded K-frame. The Cuda runs a Mylodon road race oil pan, as well as a full Hotchkiss suspension and firm feel torsion bars. Here's the part number for the Mopar aluminum block. We run a MagnaFlow 3-inch exhaust and X-pipe out to the back. You can see the aluminum drive shaft and also the MagnaFlow mufflers. The Cuda runs Hotchkiss subframe connectors. Along with the roll cage, they really stiffen up the chassis. As for the rear diff, it's a Mopar 8 3/4 with a 489 case. Fox shocks dampen the suspension, and a nice shot of the ATL fuel cell along with the fuel cell cage. The 315 tire is about 12 inches wide. The frame to fender clearance on an E-body is about 18 inches. That means you still have about 3 inches on each side of the tire. Although there's slight rubbing on U-turns, these Mopars can hold a really wide front tire. No matter how much I love and care for the Cuda, the reality is it will never love me back. The car you see next to it is a 2008 S2000 Club Racer. The CR has heavily influenced the Cuda's build, but that's for another video. This is our 1973 Dodge Challenger. It'll get the same treatment as the Cuda, but with a much higher build quality and craftsmanship now that we have a proper budget. I was able to troubleshoot the O2 sensors that haven't been working on the Cuda for years. My dumbass had wired them wrong as I didn't tie the grounds to the engine block. I also took the Cuda to Black Tracks for some drivability tuning. This was the last major issue of the car, and I'm glad to finally figure things out. It runs much better now as it uses the O2 sensors to trim out the fuel. Jay rewrote the tune for the Cuda and now puts out some great numbers. There's been many times I was frustrated and wanted to burn the car to the ground. The truth is, my ignorance was a source of that frustration, and you live and you learn, that's how you grow. I'm really glad I stuck to the build, to follow things through, to see how far it's come. It feels good to know that development on the Cuda is finally finished, and now we can go back to going to more track days. The Cuda is going to serve its purpose as a development car, as a basis for all our future builds. I use a Hans device because at the speeds you go at the track, I'd rather not snap my neck. Once it's on, I'm good to go, but the tricky part is getting inside the car. With the roll cage X-bars, it's pretty tight, so sometimes I go in through the window. Other times I go in Dukes of Hazzard style, just gotta watch the jewels. Half the time though, I do get stuck. Nah, I'm just fucking with you guys. It's pretty easy to get in as long as you're thin and sexy just like me. been a long, bumpy road for the Cuda and I. I used to drive it back when I was in the military. The Cuda gave us the freedom to do all the stupid shit that we did. And it felt great getting out and driving it back home. I am forever grateful to have it all these years, as it provided me with some productive goals in my life. I was young, broke, and naive when I bought the car for my dad back in 2001. My only knowledge of building cars was from reading Summit Racing, Jegs, and Mopar performance catalogs. All the money I earned went into buying go-fast parts that seemed cool at the time, and this car was a rolling testbed of trial and error. Even though the Cuda has had its fair share of being towed back home on a flatbed truck, each failure came with a valuable lesson. I learned that all the horsepower in the world is meaningless if your car isn't reliable, and realized that durability is key, that all the components should be balanced, and overall makes the car fun to drive. Road racing will educate you on what works and what doesn't. That's why this Cuda is styled after the 70s Trans Am race cars. There is zero instructions though, so it took us thousands and thousands of miles to figure out a combination that works. Not having a trailer, I was forced to drive to and from the racetracks in California. Those times in the Cuda, on the open road, certainly weren't comfortable, but always reminded me of how lucky we are to enjoy the freedoms that we have. I've met so many people who are interested in the Cuda, those curious on its story, and those who appreciate it for what it truly is. Hopefully it inspires the next generation to build with passion and imagination, not to care what anyone else thinks. To all the countless people who have helped me build the Cuda, to all the shops, to those who have given me advice, and everyone I've raced along the way, I just wanted to say thank you. This is our 1973 Plymouth Cuda. We are Rylis Productions. Catch you guys later.